My next painting, called Noodles in the Clouds. And this painting is about this very interesting family. Their names Ken and Isabelle. They have compassion for Chinese students who come to our country. You can always see them surrounded by them. This little angel is their very first student. They have love for China. In their house, you can learn how to use chopsticks and how to cook a good Chinese food. They became parents to these Chinese young people, and they really call them mom and dad. And Ken and Isabelle, they have a privilege to lead these people to Christ.
When I first saw the photograph, Noodles in the Sky, it's called, the thing that really struck out to me was the way my husband was looking at me with such love in his eyes. And you know, I also looked at him with my eyes, but it just reminded me of when I was very young, a long time ago. You know, I prayed very sincerely and hard that God would send me the right man. And when I look at that picture, I already knew that he had, but when I look at that picture and the painting really depicts the way that my lovely husband looks at me, and 40 years later it's still as strong as it ever was. So that's the big thing that I saw from the picture.
And I think for me, looking at the picture, it reminded me how we got involved with Chinese students in the very first place. We came from a place of brokenness, and God restored us into a place of real blessing. And it happened really quite by chance. We didn't plan this. We didn't make any desires in many respects for it. It just seemed to be God's plan for us that we got involved with overseas students. And we found that we just loved doing this ministry. We just loved being with them. And for Izzy and myself, it's just something that we love doing together. And I think the photograph and the picture just depicts like our love for them and our love for each other. And it's just something that we've been so blessed with that we didn't even plan. And it seemed as though God had a plan. And I think it's just brought Izzy and myself so close together to work together for Him and to love students from Southeast Asia that we would never ever have met.
And I think the angel in the sky looking down is Zoe, and Zoe was the very first student that we ever had contact with, and she was really at the root of the beginning of the ministry. and when I look at her, my heart sings. And now she's a mum herself, with a beautiful little girl, and she's continuing on in God. And it's just lovely to see how God, you can see in a picture how God brings everything together, and He's always got a plan, and there is always more for us from God.
And just following on from that, the picture about Zoe, it all started with one person, with one girl that we brought to church, and it just seemed that God had a plan for something to flourish from that we just never conceived at all. And so you just never know what God has in store for our lives, for every one of us.
My husband was looking at me with such love in his eyes.
We came from a place of brokenness, and God restored us into a place of real blessing.
Ooh.